Do you want to learn how to become a pro grinder here in the Hunter Call of the Wild? Well, stick around until the end because today we are once again joined by my friend Lady Legend.
Hey guys!
And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be counting down the top 10 best tips to become a pro grinder here in the Hunter Call of the Wild. Now, real quick, before we do dive in today, guys, let me know down below in the comment section, what is your dream great one? For me, it is a typical rack whitetail. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Let's do it! So the first tip I have for you for becoming a pro grinder in Call of the Wild is to choose the easiest map for whichever grind that you would like to do. So for example, if you were to do a fallow grind, I would recommend choosing Te Awaroa to do your first fallow grind. And the reason for that is because fallow have the least amount of drink zones in Te Awaroa compared to any other fallow map. So they have around 30-ish drink zones in Te Awaroa, whereas if you were to do your fallow grind in Emerald Coast, you would need to find between 45 and 55 drink zones. So if this is your first grind and you want to do the easiest grind possible, which I would recommend starting in Te Awaroa with fallow deer.
100%. The easiest map for the whitetail grind here in the Hunter Call of the Wild is going to be Reventuli.
Agreed.
In Reventuli Coast, there should be around 60 zones for whitetail.
And for moose, I would recommend doing your first moose grind in Medved, and you will need around 135 drink zones in Medved. Whereas maps like New England, you will have to find over 200 drink zones for moose. That is not a first grinder's map.
Definitely a huge challenge.
Absolutely.
For red deer, I would always recommend Te Awaroa because the map is very wide open and there's only around 40 zones to find.
So those are some recommendations for the best maps for some of the grinds for you to start on.
So the next tip that we're going to recommend to you here today is to find all of your drink zones unless you are doing a grind on one of the predator species. So for example, red fox or black bear. This isn't 100% essential, but we do recommend it in order to get the most consistent response possible. And when you're searching for your zones, some of our best tips are going to be to spot absolutely everywhere.
Follow tracks, pick up any tracks or need zone indicators. Listen for mating or warning calls. If you see traveling whitetail or whatever species it is that you are doing a grind on, do not shoot them. Follow them to their zone and discover their zone.
Now, if you're still struggling to find your zones, even after all that, what I would recommend that you do is go to the cache, pull out a quad, and drive that quad around after the drink time for whatever species you're hunting has ended, and search for need zone indicators. Now, need zone indicators are the area that the drink zone spawns in at, but it's after their drink time, so the species will not be there. I have found countless zones like this.
Here's a little story that helped me find a pile of zones. I was trying to set up a moose grind a couple years ago in the New England mountains, and there are over 200 drink zones for moose on that map. Crazy, I know. And I was really struggling to find my last few zones. I already had over 200 zones, but I could not get any respawns to come in. I spent 3 hours looking for zones and I found one zone. So I actually coincidentally went for a hunt for gray fox, who just happened to drink right after moose do. And while I was hunting them for 1 hour, I found 8 moose drink zones just from picking up the need zone indicators that were left on the ground from after moose stopped drinking. Now, we can actually share with you how many drink zones that you are looking for certain grinds.
So for whitetail in Reventuli, you're going to have around 60-ish drink zones. For fallow here in Te Awaroa, you're going to have around 30 to 40. In Emerald Coast for fallow, you're going to have 45 to 55. For Medved on the moose grind, you're going to have around 135 drink zones. For Yukon on the moose grind, you're going to have around 180. And last but not least, for red deer here in Te Awaroa, you're going to have around 40.
For whitetail, for Leighton, 60 plus drink zones. For Reventuli, 60 plus. For Rancho, 40 plus. And for New England, you don't want to do your grind in New England. Probably over 200 drink zones, but there's a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of zones in New England.
That is definitely a pro grinder's map.
Not for beginners by any means.
That is for sure. So the next tip we have for you for becoming a pro grinder in Call of the Wild is to optimize your tent and tripods when setting up. Now, when you are dropping a tent. I like to place my tents 230 meters from the drink zone. So basically what I do is if I were setting up on this drink zone right here, I would place a waypoint. Then I would literally run in the opposite direction until I hit 230 meters, and I will literally drop my tent with the opening facing my zone. Then I'm going to drop a tripod. Now I like to drop my tripods at about 175 to 200 meters away from the zone because I want to be able to run straight into my tripod, climb up, and start shooting without spooking any animals. And by having the tripod within 200 meters, if I do need to use a collar, they will be able to hear me, but they can't hear if you are over 200 meters away from the animals. So that is how I like to do my setups.
Okay, so something I would recommend that you do is use a pickup tent. Now, what a pickup tent is a tent that you place on top of the zone that you're shooting in order to fast travel over to the animal that you just shot to claim it, because over time, eliminating that running process over to the zone that you're harvesting will add up to a very long time, and when Great One grinding, every single second counts. So our next tip here today on the top 10 best tips for becoming a pro grinder here in the Hunter Call of the Wild is going to be to use an out-of-class rifle. Now, for example, when I'm doing pretty much any grind besides the pheasant grind, I always use a class 7 to 9 rifle. Usually my weapon of choice is the Valgrita 375.
And I like to use the Arzina 300.
And using that larger out-of-class weapon is going to make it so that way you stack more kills over time, speeding up that Great One grind, and in the end spawning that Great One faster. Just be careful not to use it on any trophy animals, as it will mess them up.
That would be bad. The next tip we have for becoming a pro grinder is to get really good at follow-up shots. Now, it is a lot easier to take a follow-up shot when you are using a mouse and keyboard, but even on a controller, all you can really do to get better at follow-up shots is to practice. When you are taking 2 animals down from each zone, that is basically what you want to do if at all possible, because when you only take 1, the grind is going to take literally twice as long. So basically what I do is when I am shooting more than 1 animal, I get a visual on both. So basically I figure out which animal I'm going to shoot first, which I'm going to shoot second. I keep that second animal in the corner of my eye, and as soon as I shoot that first animal, I'm already moving on to the second. So let's give it a try right now. Now, if at all possible, you want to be taking shots on broadside animals because frontal shots just don't seem to register that well in the game. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but on a broadside animal, you have a much greater chance of getting a vital and dropping that animal so you don't have to do a lot of tracking. That will basically help you to do this grind as fast as possible. So here we go. So I'm going to shoot this guy and then this guy over here. So I'm already moving over here. And we got them both.
Beautiful.
So basically, you just want to practice, practice, practice. Anything you do over and over again, you are going to get better at. That is just life.
100%. And then I might as well shoot this guy too, once his bodyguard gets out of the way there. Bingo. All right, and here's this guy, 198.39 there. We shot him in the stomach. Interesting. So the next tip that we're going to be sharing with you here today is to become very good at herd management. Now, herd management is the process of filling all of your exterior zones, or the zones that you're not going to be consistently rotating through, with small animals in order to force spawn big animals into your mains, spawning more diamonds, bigger rares, and eventually even that Great One.
So when you are using herd management, basically this is what you want to do. Now, these are just brief points. The first thing you want to do, and you do this with any grind, whether you're herd managing or not, is to find all of your drink zones for non-predator species. Now, I want to mention that if you are doing a grind for anything that does not drink, you do not have to find all of your feed zones. It is a good idea to find as many as you possibly can because, number one, you need to know what is on your map. You could have very sweet initial spawn trophies and not even know about it. But also, finding more zones will actually help you to get more consistent respawns. And that is the bigger reason that I like to find as many zones as possible. For herd management, once you find all your zones, you want to set up on 8 main zones. So basically you pick which zones are your main zones. You want to pick zones that are nice, wide open, just your favorite zones. Those are going to be your main zones. And literally every other zone on your map for that species is an exterior zone. But because we only have 16 tents, you can only get to 8 of those exterior zones at a time. So what you do is you set up on 8 exterior zones and then you rotate on all 16 zones at the same same time, shooting the mid levels and up. So for fallow, you're going to shoot the large 3s, level 4s, but you're not going to shoot the level 5s right away. When diamonds do spawn, you want to stack them, and what stacking is you're just going to leave them for now. We're not going to shoot them right away, and the reason you do that is because the game knows there's big animals on your map, so it's going to compensate by giving you smaller ones, and that is what you want in your exterior zone. So that is going to help you to shoot your map down faster. The next tip we have for becoming a pro grinder in Call of the Wild is to grind as much as you can without getting burnt out.
Absolutely. Something that I like to do is have multiple grinds set up at the same time, so that way I can alternate between different grinds when I get bored with one. So for example, I'm currently focusing on a black bear grind over in Silver Ridge Peaks, and when I'm streaming or when I'm just casually playing, and after a while you are going to get bored of harvesting the same species over and over again, it's just how the human brain works. I sometimes come over to my fallow grind, I'll go to my pheasant grind, and I always have an absolute blast.
If you're not having fun, then something's got to change. Take a break and come back later when you are refreshed.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be sharing with you guys today is something that is very, very important, especially when doing a herd managed grind, and this is solo zones. So what a solo zone is a zone that only has males in it, or a zone that only has a single male. Now, when you find a solo zone, depending on what grind you're doing, you may need to shoot it. So for example, we are looking at a solo zone right now. The deer on the right is a non-shooter deer, but the deer on the left is a big deer. You do not want this as a solo because of the fact that the goal is to have all the big deer in your mains and all the small deer in your exteriors. This also applies to solo zones. So what I would suggest that you do is stack 5s in your mains, and then when you find a solo that's big enough, depending on what grind you're doing, I usually shoot any fallow that look like they'll score 150 or bigger if they're a solo, and obviously this level 4 here is a huge deer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it.
Splat!
Beautiful. Now, what I'm aiming for to happen here is for this solo to come back as a non-shooter deer, or non-shooter animal, depending on what grind you're doing. Now, this isn't guaranteed. Something that'll help you with that is having max level animals in your mains, but the whole goal with solos is to shoot them down to non-shooter animals.
So basically what I do when I am dealing with my solo zones is I wait until I have several diamonds stacked, as many as possible actually. Once I do, then I wait at least 20 minutes real time after shooting my last fallow, because I don't want anything to be in the respawn pool or it will not work. Then go and shoot one solo deer, just like this nice big level 4 that Squid just shot. So what I would do is shoot it and leave it on the ground, and then go to your main zones and shoot the smallest fallow that you can find. Also leave it on the ground, and then leave the map and come back. What that's going to do is it is going to make them respawn at the same time, and there is a 50-50 chance that their respawns will swap zones, and that is what you are trying to do. So it may or may not work, and if it doesn't, you will have to repeat the process, and once you shoot a solo, that zone is going to delete, so you will likely have to refind it again unless it attaches itself to a herd zone, which can happen. So once you're done that, wait another 20 minutes until you go back to your fallow zone. Give them a chance to respawn, because if you continue shooting right away, it's not going to work. So that you have the most efficient grind possible. So check your need zone indicators when setting up to avoid. The next tip we have for becoming a pro grinder, what we would actually recommend doing is joining live streams and watching grinds live. The reason you want to do this is because you are going to learn so much from watching different creators do their Great One grinds, especially when they're using herd management. One huge benefit to this is not only visually learning, but you can also ask creators questions live in the chat and get a live answer. So if there's something you don't understand, you can just ask questions, and that is an amazing way to learn.
Absolutely. I have such an amazing community. The Call of the Wild community is such a great place. So many helpful people out there. If you don't get a direct answer from the creator personally, I can almost guarantee you there will be someone who has a lot of experience in there with the game that will be more than willing to help you on out.
Absolutely.
So the very last tip that we have here for you guys today is going to be to join a Discord server community. Now, the link for my Discord server is down in the description. Inside of the community Discord servers, like we just mentioned, the community is so amazing anything. In my Discord server, there's literally hundreds of people in there who'd be more than willing to help you out, whether you have questions, whether you're looking to join up with a friend, and we have a lot of different helpful materials like hotspot maps, species info, and more. Again, the link for my Discord server is down in the description, and I'll hope to see you in there. But anyways, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, definitely let me know down below by smashing that like button and subscribing, as it is much appreciated, and YouTube tells me that over 80% of you guys are not subscribed, so if you wouldn't mind, my goal by the end of 2025 is not only to reach 10,000 subscribers, but also to get that margin above 50%. And also, definitely go down below into the description and drop Lady a subscription, as she's an amazing Call of the Wild content creator. She makes so many informational videos, and I have learned so much from Lady over the years. Definitely go give her channel some love.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey guys, my name is Squid. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lady.
My pleasure.
And without further ado, as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.